This video is sponsored by Crimson Manifesto, Knuckles OX, Jelpy, and Baba Snake. Though they have questions about the appearance of 8 other Dragon Balls to collect rather than 6, their goal is overall the same, and Granola, or Amu, is able to offer the helpful suggestion that this radar could be picking up signals from the Dragon Balls they left behind on planet Cereal, earning him some shock from the fully uninitiated amongst the Dragon Team's ranks and Chi-Chi and the Pilaf gang, as they come to learn in such a casual way that there are aliens amongst them. Subsequently, Raditz admonishes his dunder-headed adopted brother for the slip-up, causing the two to busy themselves trying to kill one another, while Bulma and the rest plot a course of action to collect the remaining wish ores most efficiently. And so after saying goodbye to an obviously scheming Pilaf gang, the group set off, periodically splitting up when they can to kill 2 stones with a single birdie, as Raditz puts it, as they make way for the closest signal located in Diablo Desert, where after some searching, they meet a young bandit named Yamcha and his flying cat companion in possession of a 9-star Dragon Ball, which also disproves Granola's previous theory. And he also has an ambition to collect them all by holding something he wants to call the Yamcha Games, with the goal of assembling the toughest scum and villainy in the world with their own orbs, so he can not only make a supremely important wish, but also etch his name into history as a great martial artist like legends such as Muten Roshi, Son Gohan, or the new character on the scene he'd heard of, Bruce Chun, though once he meets the Dragon Team and nearly ends up roughed up by Granola, whom hones in more on the bandits and villainy part of the story. And beyond this, the presence of Bulma and Chi-Chi terrify Yamcha, which is mind-shatteringly funny to Raditz, with him nearly suffocating of laughter once he gets Puar to disclose Yamcha's wish and particular phobia, all while negotiating a compromise, more so because he can tell it ticks Granola off he's not getting to bring in a bounty than the actual desire for peace. And so he offers the solution of Yamcha joining up with them for exposure therapy, as it were, rather than a wish, as his only other option is losing to the group who can outnumber and outpower him, and then skulking around for a slim chance to pilfer the Dragon Balls away. Thus, though a bit reluctantly, their Dragon Ball count rises to 2 and their team members to 6. Moving east, they come upon a place called Penguin Village, where they meet a weird, yet helpful and exceedingly powerful girl the group could swear they've seen in manga or on some anime. However, once she shows them to the 1-star Dragon Ball, she winds up vanishing without a trace. A little creeped out, they continue on and find their next orb will be located inside a military base that upon catching sight of, the likes of Bulma, Yamcha, and Chi-Chi grow fearful, with the expertise of Yamcha and Granola being extremely useful in the act of simply snagging it stealthily, since with violence off the table at Bulma's order, this would be their next best option after they're turned away at the door. However, as one would expect, Goku and Raditz pretty much roll natural 1s on their stealth checks, and turn the mission from a heist into a smash and grab, with the humans lamenting their lot in life, as the Saiyans and Cerulean bear no reverence for the so-called fierce Red Ribbon Army, seeing fit to send an entire platoon of soldiers flying, and bust the place up good before departing for the hassle they gave them, and Granola's failed plan on his part. In the end though, they obtained the 7-star Dragon Ball without much difficulty, and while the excitement of getting one step closer to bringing her mom back overcomes Chi-Chi's apprehension, both Bulma and Yamcha pray this doesn't come back to bite them in the ass one day. Next, they go to the far north to acquire the 5-star ball from the Arctic, actually having to take some time and be careful to melt it out of an iceberg, without actually melting the entire thing at Bulma's insistence. Then, as eastward as they can go, they find themselves in a place known as the Sacred Land of Corn, as a massive tower comes into view, seeing the group look on in awe from the distance. And when following it towards his base, and where the dragon radar is directing them, they soon enough meet a father and his son whom are fishing with harpoons. Though despite the massive man holding a weapon who introduces himself as Bor looking quite imposing, he is an incredibly kind and gentle fellow, introducing the children to the young lad with him named Upa. Goku even kindly offers to help the duo with their fishing in response to their hospitality, though this is partially due to his greater love for fishing because of his own father's presence in his life. But before this can be discussed further, the devil himself appears, as a frantic-seeming Bardock arrives from the air and lands roughly with a skidding halt, as he runs up to the kids and looks them over, before looking at the surroundings to make sure they aren't causing trouble so close to Kame's place, getting indignation from the likes of Raditz and Granola, who take offense at his mostly looking at them when he says this, while Bulma also asks with some snark if her sensei really left work at Capsule Corp and rushed all the way here because he didn't trust her to manage the guard dogs, causing him to agree he may have jumped the gun, while looking up into the air where he knows the god of Earth is still likely watching and evaluating their right to stay. He also ends up meeting Yamcha, Bora, and Upa here by result of his haste, with the other father taking a bit to get over his shock at a flying man able to cross the world in mere minutes, and at the same time can respect the heart of a man so devoted to his children's well-being as to cultivate such strength, seeing him as the unofficial guardian of this land welcome the group to return anytime they like, and leading them back to his teepee at the base of the tower, where he offers them the 8-star Dragon Ball, explaining that he'd recovered it lodged in the crust of a nearby volcano after it landed over a year ago, and fearing it would trigger the dormant structure, he removed it and sealed the hole. Thankful to Bora, the group decide to follow through on Goku's offer to help the family of 2 fish, taking the rest of the day easy, with even Bardock deciding to take a half day on his guard ship to join them, shaking hands with Bora and bidding the kids a casual see you soon, before he departs, and they continue their journey for the last 3 Dragon Balls, 2 of which are found fairly close in the wilderness, so Granola and Raditz split up to find them, seemingly guarded by a giant gorilla mistaking it for a juicy orange, and a giant hawk mistaking it for a rival bird's egg, respectively, with both boys winding up wishing they had the other there, when realizing just how tough it will be to retrieve the ore straightforwardly, without harming the creatures with no intention of eating them. A taboo Kame had warned many times was worthy of the indignity of being skinned alive and left to rot oneself, and subsequently, they are glad their rival is not with them to hear this, but the thought of them inspires working strategies, such as Granola goading the big ape to take a bite out of his fruit since he's so intent on fighting him to keep it, only for the gorilla to fall for it and take a big bite, chipping his tooth and giving up on it on his own. While Raditz's solution is more questionable, rushing back to the Groot to borrow Puar from Yamcha, before then getting the poor cat to transform into a massive egg and allow Raditz to throw him into the air, causing the hawk to assume one of her babies has fallen from the nest, and subsequently allow Raditz a clean shot to knock the Dragon Ball out of the nest and catch it in Puar before zipping off, ignoring Puar's protest that this plan was still needlessly cruel, but in the end, the 2 and 3 star balls are obtained. With the last Dragon Ball to collect, the group are surprised when it pushes them far into civilization, near Orange City, where the radar points them to a fairly small but pretty lavish and gaudily decorated dojo called Satan's Castle or Satan House. And more than ready to get things over with, Raditz decides to simply barge in and demand the Dragon Ball be handed over. As a result, seeing him come into conflict with the dojo's #1 Afro student, whom is nearly beaten to a pulp, if not for Mr. Satan stopping the fight for Mark's sake by handing over the 6-star ball and apologizing for his student's rudeness, obviously having learned from last time something like this happened, and recognizing this trinket isn't worth his or his student's life. In turn, both Goku and Granola apologize on the Dragon Team's behalf, bonking Raditz on the head to say he's sorry as well for being so rude, before they leave, and the Saiyan grumbles to himself about pushover humans and their soft ways. And so now, as the kids have officially finished their quest for the 9 Dragon Balls, they travel back into the wilderness for seclusion and prepare to summon the dragon to complete Chi-Chi's wish, subsequently meeting the new fused form of the Eternal Dragons, Tarumbo and Shinron, whilst also learning of the new stipulations on making a wish. One receives 2 wishes. However, one wish will have a positive outcome, and one a negative. That is to say, they must be balanced. An act of creation must be matched with an act of destruction. But before any philosophical discussion can be had about such implications, Raditz flatly wishes Chi-Chi's mother be revived as their positive outcome, and that Lord Frieza be stricken with her death as their negative. Now, while this is extremely un-Saiyan-like, remember what Bardock's been saying as of late, as well as the fact that this is still Raditz we're talking about, so he is open to taking the logical and easy way out of things. Though he too has pride and vendetta against the space tyrant, Granola likes this idea, and honestly, because of his dad and brother's influence, Goku too is pretty open to it, especially if it's a necessity for completion of their quest, to the point of assuring Chi-Chi is more than alright alongside the others, since Bulma, having heard just a bit about the galactic bad guy, is all for the idea as well. However, the dragons inform this wish is far beyond their power, though Tarumbo elaborates while the deed could be done, it would take a sacrifice on their part far greater than a single life for a life. Morbidly curious as to why his perfect plan still can't work, Raditz asks exactly what they need to offer as a sacrifice. And after a tense pause, the dragons answer in tandem, your lives, those of your families, and over 20 million of Earth's inhabitants. Immediately, everyone looks to Raditz in horror as he goes pale, quickly telling the dragons to nix that, and after another bout of putting that big brain of his to work, requests to have Annen's death befall a random Frieza soldier instead, since that should be a whole lot easier. Then, with another pause and a flaring glow of their eyes, the dragons announce their wish has been granted, bidding them all farewell as the 9 Dragon Balls prepare to disperse. And thankfully, with 3 capable bodies, they're able to single out the 3, 4, and 6-star balls to return them as Bardock had asked. With their mission officially accomplished, our heroes begin to go their separate ways as needed, with Bulma returning to the city with Yamcha and Puar, who by now are thinking of getting out of the desert, more so for a change of pace than because of any romantic intentions, since this more overbearing Bulma may take a while to get used to, and Chi-Chi excitedly tags along with the sons of Mount Paozu to see her taken quickly back to Fire Mountain, where she is reunited with her mom, the entire Ox family gratefully thanking the trio for their work before they go. Seeing her heroes walk off in the distance, Chi-Chi turns to her father and mother, asking if they would please train her, as she frankly wasn't helpful in the journey past moral support, and next time, she wants to be able to stand beside everyone as equals. Returning home victorious, the kids now had their own journey to brag about, and this also informs Bardock about the changes to the dragons, confirming his suspicions. And with these changes, he muses about how this may help shift the balance of power in the universe someday, though he still fears that any drastic and public actions like reviving any massive groups of people may only result in their immediate extermination, or re-extermination as it were. Though following the completion of this second Dragon Ball hunt, Bardock is chagrined to find that his house has become loud again, with him finally resolving to go ahead and get the boys an official martial arts master that they can study with away from home instead of threatening it vaguely anymore, with it coming as a pleasant surprise that when he posed the idea to Gine, Musli, and Gohan, they aren't all too opposed by it for various reasons, which leaves the Saiyan feeling vindicated and more motivated. So, they finally wind up making that trip over to Kame House, all 7 of them deciding to cram into Grandpa Gohan's car for the sake of not pushing him to fly along with them, as he very obviously wanted to tag along. Roshi and Turtle are very happy to have them drop by and interrupt the malaise of their day, with the old master also being extremely happy Bardock brought Muzi along with Kame, as she and Granola are introduced to the master for the first time, whose questions of their origins and stories are waved off as pretty much irrelevant by his Saiyan student, as Bardock tries to keep the old coot's mind off the babes and back on the subject at hand, that being his promise to evaluate his kids closer if he brought him for a visit. And when the old guy pouts that the monkey man's no fun, Bardock reminds the old codger one of those babes is his mate, and the other a widow. Though, come to think of it, he really hadn't pried all that much into the topic of Granola's father, since it's not an easily broached subject. So either way, don't go flirting with the chick. However here, Roshi eyes his self-proclaimed protege, asking if that's not exactly what he's doing, shipping his kids off to school while shacking up at Gohan's place with 2 beautiful young women, since he doubts old Gohan is doing any dating in his golden years like his master. But Bardock grunts in irritation that he wants off this subject now, and for the old man to just get with the brat teaching already. Roshi then helpfully retorts that Bardock's not even respecting their little charade anymore, grumbling about the younger man being too selfish and hypocritical, as he walks in front of and looks the 3 boys up and down with an appraising eye, with everyone present but Grandpa Gohan curious about what it is exactly he's looking for. It's during this silence as this strange old man is surveying them that of course the 3 potential new Turtle School students decide to have their true colors show, with Raditz inevitably finding a snide remark to make, Granola taking offense to it and trying to have the last and funnier word, and Goku's just bantering and horsing around with the 2 in order to keep the peace and everyone laughing and having fun. And with this small showing, Roshi sees about all he needs to, before fairly bluntly telling Bardock he's only going to take his mini-me and Goku, while citing the other 2 as not the right speed for the Turtle School, suggesting Bardock try and work on their rough edges a bit himself before trying to pawn them off on someone else. Or at the very least, he should find someone who the boys can humble themselves and learn from considering their particular quirks. This creates a small dilemma for the Saiyan, who thought this would be easy, with the likes of Muzi actually pretty curious to see how Bardock will play this. However, instead of getting upset and brooding, he merely sighs that he had a feeling that'd be the case, whilst admitting that even he isn't likely a true fit for the school's true teachings. So it's no surprise the 2 who have seen at least a fraction of the action and chaos he has in space already would have different outlooks that inform how they vibe with certain teachings. What's more, this might actually be able to help break Kakarot's overdependence on his brothers, which is a skill he will have to learn sooner or later, with sooner certainly being preferable. After spending most of the day hanging around Roshi's, and getting Goku, Gine, and Muzi prepared for their sappy temporary goodbye, the group prepare to depart. But before they do, Roshi first of all reminds Bardock he better not spend the whole time his kids are away goofing off. He as well reminds him of the whole point of Jackie Chun's existence, and so in doing this for him, the Saiyan should know what he'll be obligated to do in return when the time comes, as it won't be a job the Turtle Hermit is suited for, sadly. And though just about everyone else aside from Gohan is confused by this, Bardock simply smiles back to his teacher, and says he knows, and he will be ready, thanking him for his help as everyone begins to make their way outside of Kame House to leave. As he's going, Roshi also stops Gohan, slipping him a small herb in a little baggie, and encouraging him to try some of it, as it's what he uses to stave off the effects of old age. The adopted grandfather in turn thanks him for it, deciding he can at the very least try it to see how this makes him feel. Though, being determined to finish his task today, Bardock sends the others home in the flying car without him, Granola, and Raditz, instead directing the boys to follow him, while making his way back to the land of corn, and going straight up, apparently breaking some sacred rule in the process, as he very quickly arrives with a lookout. Thankfully, Kame is getting more and more used to Bardock, and so having seen him coming, he's more welcoming than he usually is, even though he explains there is meant to be a trial to reach this place. In turn, Bardock shows goodwill back and apologizes, especially since he's in need of a favor. But before this, Mr. Popo and an elated Monaito joined them, the other Namekian very happy to see Granola up close, and to see that he really is acting like a kid once again, at least a bit. Back on topic, Bardock, having remembered Kame's ability to spy on him from afar, is hoping for some help to locate 2 of the candidates he feels are qualified to oversee Raditz and Granola's training. And when asked who he has in mind, Bardock thinks back to at least one noteworthy face he met on his journey. With Kame's help and direction, it does not take the Saiyan long to find and reunite with Tao Pai Pai, going on his own at first with plans to send Granola afterwards should all go well, subsequently seeing him arrive to a large and ornate martial arts school, where the assassin is staying, as following his embarrassment from Bardock, he has returned to the basics and has put his solo assassin work on hiatus in favor of returning to the Crane School, where he has begun a new harsher training regiment, and even agreed to help his brother Shin closer with his top students. Thus, in the last year, he has worked diligently to improve and sharpen his skill to catch up with his own ego, and has raised his power level to a respectable 313 in response to it. Upon his arrival, Bardock takes note of this as a good sign of his qualification, greeting Tao amicably, while in turn, the assassin is wary of him. But he could never forget Bruce Chun, seeing him more so curious as to why he has the pleasure of making his acquaintance again than upset or dripping with bravado. Showing the same tact, Bardock briefly explains what he's doing, and this intrigues Tao on multiple fronts, partially because he didn't take Chun for a family man, though Bardock tries to correct that the kid in question isn't exactly his, and also partially because Bardock clearly insinuates that it's possible he would have just as much to learn from this young aspiring killer as Tao has to teach him, an enticing prospect for one who is susceptible to appeals of power and ambition. And so the two make a deal. Bardock gets a good place for Granola to train the skills he likes, and Tao gets some concrete assurance that he doesn't need to be looking over his shoulder for Bruce Chun. Following the encounter with Tao, Bardock returns to the lookout to inform Granola of the good news, and that he should go back to Mount Paozu to properly say goodbye to and update his mom if he likes. Though in all honesty, now that the day to leave Bardock's tutelage has come, Granola's a bit reluctant, unconvinced an Earthling will truly be a suitable stand-in. While in contrast, Raditz is very excited, since as Bardock's oldest, he's sure the man has saved the best teacher for last, even insinuating that maybe he wants him to stay here and train under this so-called god, since that is after all the best matchup for him. And Bardock takes some great joy in revealing things are just the opposite, grinning down at Raditz as to confirm this. Though instead, their next port of call is the exact opposite, as they return to Satan's castle, where upon seeing Raditz's return, Mark Hercule, holding both a grudge and some fear for Raditz, demands to know what he wants now, while also seeing Bardock and assuming the two are simply country yokels who seek to sully their dojo. Though once again, the humbled Mr. Satan calms his student, very clearly recognizing Bardock and asking what he can do for him. The two then have a similar conversation to the one Bardock just had with Tao, but Satan needs far less convincing, seeming more than happy to receive a new student, while also somewhat presumably asking if Bardock would like to pay for tuition monthly or annual. However, hearing of this extra bill, Bardock twists his nose up the way Raditz would at something he doesn't like to hear, jabbing his thumb towards his kid and stating he's more than man enough to work for his own training, meals, room, and board, in turn making the dojo owner deflate a bit. Bardock then pulls Raditz to the side and specifies to him that he's not leaving him here just to be a dick. This is about humbling Raditz and breaking him of some of his worst habits in Bardock's eyes. And since this place sticks out so vividly in Raditz's retelling of his journey, this is where that'll best be done. And to his delight, Raditz actually seems to mind him this time, nodding his head a bit sullenly with a quiet, "Yes, father," before they leave with plans for Raditz to return as well once he's seen his mom and packed some things. And so, dedicated and structured daily training begins for the sons of Bruce Chun. As for the likes of Goku at the Turtle School, there isn't all too much to elaborate on, as we've seen it in canon. Though, there are noteworthy changes, like this Goku being younger when beginning to work with Roshi, and therefore is in possession of an easier molded mind, as well as some more smarts from actually being raised by someone this entire time. All in all though, Goku takes well to working hard, studying well, eating and sleeping plenty, and is even unwittingly helping his teacher to power up. While Roshi, knowing the boy's father and grandfather, likely wouldn't see fit to put him through any unnecessary test like finding a pretty girl. Though there is one noteworthy occurrence outside of canon, as one day during training, or the afternoon nap as it were, a vehicle arrives on shore, a flying car, out from which emerges Yamcha, who is also seeking the tutelage of the Turtle Hermit to catch up to his rivals on the Dragon Team, not wanting to be bested by tough guys like his little buddy Goku, or monstrous women like Bulma. And with a little bit of vouching from Goku, Yamcha joins the Turtle School early. Meanwhile, at the Crane School, Granola has arrived and been welcomed by Tao Pai Pai, whom once evaluating the kid can see why Bruce Chun was so insistent the child wasn't his, as it'd be pretty tough to pretend otherwise. Still, he shows the boy the same respect he shows his adoptive father, while in return, Granola is fairly rude and aloof, up until the point of Tao presenting him with a simple test to ensure he's worthy of his training. And though Granola passes with flying colors, he does so at such speed that he quickly draws both the awe and ire of some of his fellow students, chiefly among them a boy who also possesses strange eyes, whom along with his best friend has worked extremely hard to receive the recognition of Tao, only to then see this new boy waltz in as if he owns the place, and subsequently beginning a one-sided rivalry. As a result, the first weeks of Granola's training are slow in progress, as he's reluctant to really learn from Tao at first, and not as receptive to arguing with Tien as he is with Raditz. He even runs afoul of Master Shin due to his attitude and refuses to help with either daily chores or any of Tao's odd assassination jobs as part of shadowing him. The breakthrough, however, comes when Tao finally has a heart-to-heart with the boy after he once again embarrasses Tien and Chaozu by showing himself a master of flight without the need to really learn it with Tao, whom after this expresses that Granola is actually very much like Bardock's in terms of power and how he carries himself, always very strong and never showing any gaps in their armor. Though Granola takes some offense to this, wanting to know what's wrong with that, and Tao replies that he used to believe nothing at all was wrong with it, though now he's learned something important. Strength is not only found when one is powerful, and strength doesn't exist without weakness, nor weakness without strength. Thus, he has begun to study the interstices between the two, and in that, he's both found some calm and a power he once could have only dreamed of. And it is here he finally gets through to Granola, as this point of view allows the Cerulean to finally begin sensing Ki, proof that there is something to learn here. Meanwhile, despite what Bardock had expected or hoped for, Raditz ends up kinda running Satan Castle, and mostly on accident if he's being honest, at first doing his best to remain humble and grounded when training with Hercule and Mr. Satan, only to in the end have his head get even bigger from their constant awe and praise of his strength. but in the process, he winds up training Mr. Satan and Hercule up by proxy, taking some responsibility for them as his comrades, with them soon forming a close-knit trio of boasters and braggarts, as the Saiyan makes them aware of ki and maybe even able to fly and project it a bit, so they can at least help him train and dodge ki blast fire. Though this mostly solo training doesn't grow Raditz' power level a great ton, he certainly does gain some new unique moves he'd never have gotten back home, and some leadership skills. For about 8 long months, this is how things go, until a fated day arrives, and the 3 masters in question decide the best test of their student skills, and their own in the cases of Tao and Satan, consider their games, is the upcoming 20th Tenkaichi Budokai, a day everyone in the household of Bardock has been greatly looking forward to, as it will finally mark the end on Bardock's ban on contact with the boys to promote their independence in this venture, with the adults of the strange patchwork family eagerly buzzing and chatting about the tournament, while enjoying a group spar refereed by Gohan to work off their breakfast. In the past year, the likes of Gine and Muesli have just played some games, since it has been a good while of this kind of thing, even though this means Gine is keeping up with this really woman's more lethal attacks. Of course though, they wind up losing as always, since Bardock is still a lot stronger, and if anything, seems like he may have begun training a bit more seriously on his own now that the boys are away, with him joking that they've both gotten really good at least, even praising that by now, Muesli has definitely earned one of those Cerulean warrior scarf things. However, suddenly Bardock looks as if he's realized something, grunting that he totally forgot he had a guardship today, and thus can't even go to see the boys fight in the tournament. In response, Gine and Muesli are both fairly upset with him, feeling this an incredibly callous thing to do when he was the one who pushed them to do this in the first place, as well as knowing that his absence during such a big day would probably really hurt all 3 boys. But Bardock is insistent that he can't call out, as Briefs really needs him, before he speeds off towards their house to get ready for work. As he disappears into the distance and both women continue to fume, Grandpa Gohan encourages them not to be so hard on a man for devotion to his work and family, even when Bardock decides to show it in odd ways. Barely satisfied by this, the trio finish up their own preparation before leaving for Papaya Island. While back at home, Bardock also prepares to set out, but not to work like he fibbed, taking a jacket and a mask Grandpa Gohan had left for him. But that's where we'll be leaving the story off for right now. I know this is a rough cliffhanger, especially since I've recently begun to see a few grumblings about the strictly slice of life feel of the story so far. Though doing it this way at least allows me to both highlight the training a little bit, since my original version was going to have it a lot more streamlined, and give some actual focused fights next part, which I'm also going to label as round 2 to this part's round 1. Since a lot of people seem to associate 0.5 parts with side story content that they can skip, and this most certainly won't be that. I would stick it out and just make a monster part, but the 2 scripts together equal out to well over twice the average script length I'm trying to stick to for more frequent uploads, so stay tuned, and before you know it, there will be another action-packed installment of Bardock's Family for you to enjoy. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and please consider leaving a like and subscribing to support the channel if you enjoyed. Shoutouts to Val and Mr. Negative as always for the help with visuals, to my friends Pickled Dill, Rune Scribble, and the Storybuster for the help with script reviews and some suggestions, and of course to our special channel supporters of the day, Jao MTN, King Music for Real, Quick Raz, Cyber Samurai, Adam McClendon, Nova, Raheem Williams, Trent Rouse, Austin White, Thirded Potato, and Elijah Coclow. Consider becoming a channel member or a patron to receive early access to my content and more perks, like having your name listed in the credits of videos along with these wonderful people. Take care of yourselves and the world around you, and as always, go beyond plus ultra. And I'll see you on the next action-packed episode of Dragon Ball.